Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Marlina Whop.
Good afternoon. Our top stories on 7. Cyclone Alfred tracking for southeast Queensland. Residents told to prepare. Landfall still days away, but the impact already being felt on the coast. Star shares frozen again as the casino giant stares down an uncertain future. And Hollywood's biggest names shine at the Oscars. Southeast Queensland is bracing for Tropical Cyclone Alfred to hit the coast this week, with updated modelling putting landfall between the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane. We have reporters across the region. First, let's bring in Jacqueline Robson now. Jackie, what's the latest?
Well, Marlina, the latest is that modelling has Cyclone Alfred making landfall late on Thursday evening and into Friday morning. And it looks like the Sunshine Coast is in the firing line. It's bringing destructive winds of up to 160 kilometres an hour and heavy rain, totals of more than 300 millimetres. It's likely to cross as a Category 2, and it is the southern side of this system that will cop the brunt of these conditions. The biggest concern for authorities right now in the island communities off the southeast. It's ferry services and barge services that could stop within 24 hours. The advice is for those who have medical needs to leave as soon as possible. We've already seen long lines for ferries at Stradbroke Island. Not long ago, an alert was issued that all Brisbane River ferries will stop tonight, while the Brisbane port here is now closed to incoming vessels. Freight and cruise ships are being diverted. Just one cruise liner will be allowed to offload passengers, and that's the Pacific Encounter, which is due tomorrow morning. Now, the next concern is storm surges. The swell is pushing 4 metres off the Queensland coasts. There's waves off Gari that are recorded of being up to 16 metres tall. It's causing coastal erosion along the southeast. All beaches have now been closed. There are fears the system could pass on a high tide, meaning there are those on canals which might see the storm surge and inundate homes in areas like Noosa and the Gold Coast. The Premier says generators are being positioned for the possible loss of critical infrastructure and power. Let's take a listen.
Our energy providers are pre-deploying things like generation capacity. They're doing everything they can to look at those networks. Again, that is an important part of the process. The operations of government will, of course, continue.
For now, airports remain open. Passengers will get updates through their airlines. The Premier says there is a strong chance that schools will close as this system reaches the coast, but updates will be provided each evening for the following day. The destructive winds are set to start pounding the southeast from Wednesday. The cyclone watch extends from Gari down past Byron Bay into New South Wales. Marlina, the strong message from the Premier today for residents was to prepare your home and expect the worst.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Jordan Quinn is on the Sunshine Coast. Jordan, what suburbs are in the firing line?
Marlina, Golden Beach is the biggest concern here, and I just want to show you what's actually occurring. This is a huge pile of sticks, logs and debris which Council has just pulled from the shoreline. It's about over 2 metres tall, and it's actually come from Bribie Island, which is just over there in the distance, after breaking away due to these strong winds and huge swell. It's now carved an even further gap between the island after it broke away 3 years ago. It also means Golden Beach now has little to no protection from this huge swell at sea and is now in the firing line of Alfred. The Caloundra Power Boat Club is built right on the shore. They are extremely concerned about what's to come, so they've spent today tying down tables, taping windows and sandbagging the club.
We're just starting to prepare for what's coming in the next 48 hours. You can feel the wind yourself here this morning. A bit of sandbagging around the entry points here, removing furniture. Staff are up here tying down all our outside furniture.
A little earlier, we were taken out just a short distance into Palmerston Passage, which was closely watched and authorised by the Coast Guard. The winds were ferocious. The water was extremely choppy, proving Alfred is already packing a punch. But Marlina, from Wednesday, the Sunshine Coast is now bracing for around 200 millimetres of rain.
Thank you, Jordan. And to Rosanna Kingson at Redcliffe. Rosie, residents across the southeast are beginning to prepare for the region's first cyclone in decades.
Yeah, that's right, Marlina. Obviously, people in the southeast are very used to floods as well as storms, but cyclones is something different. We're down here at the Margate sandbagging station this afternoon, where there are plenty of residents here filling up their sandbags, ready to take them back to their homes, just to get ready in case of any inundation risk and flooding over those days to come as Tropical Cyclone Alfred approaches the coast. We've seen similar scenes at Newmarket in Brisbane. There's been sandbagging locations across the southeast that are a hive of activity right now. We've also seen people out and about buying generators and torches, things like that, as they try to get ready for this weather event. Many people have told us that they don't really know what to expect from a cyclone. Many haven't prepared for a cyclone in the southeast before. It has been decades since there has been one here, and a lot of residents are saying that their biggest concern over the coming days, Marlina, will be that flooding risk.
All right, thanks, Rosie. Now to 7 News meteorologist Tony Auden. And Tony, just how bad can this get?
Marlina, at Category 1 or Category 2, we're not going to see the same scenes as previous severe cyclones up north, where those wind gusts have pushed over 200 k's now, but it'll still pack a punch. Let's jump a day ahead and onto the approach towards landfall. The first thing we'll notice is those even bigger waves. Significant wave heights pushing between 4 and 5 metres at the moment. That could bump up to 6 to 7 metres closer to landfall, and that would lead to even more significant coastal erosion. Wind-wise, we're looking at those damaging wind gusts up to 120 k's an hour on the coast close to landfall. But if Alfred intensifies further, that could even bump up to stronger, destructive wind gusts too. The wind does usually start to ease back the further inland you go. Then, at and after landfall, it is all about that rain. The main concern here is if Alfred were to stall inland and keep that heavy rain coming for days. As it stands, we're still likely to see major flooding in many catchments. Marlina, we're getting down to the business now. I'll be back soon with the latest.
All right, thanks, Tony. Now to other news, and 9,000 employees of Star Entertainment are holding their breath as uncertainty surrounds the future of the casino operator. Business editor Amelia Brace reports.
Well, Star Entertainment shares were suspended again today, and they will stay that way for the foreseeable future, with the debt-riddled company still unable to finalise and publish its accounts. Despite crisis talks over the weekend, the casino has failed to secure a last-minute rescue package to stave off collapse. The company told lenders on Friday it had just 1 week left of cash, so it really is just a matter of days now, with administration imminent. In terms of operations at Star's 3 casinos, little will change in the short term should the company go into administration. The ongoing concern is the future of 9,000 employees across New South Wales and Queensland, with both of those state governments ruling out a rescue package.
I can't plunge taxpayer money into casinos. We put in an arrangement to save jobs, but there's limits to what we can pay.
The arrangement Chris Minns mentioned is a jobs guarantee that Star is bound by. The New South Wales Premier says his understanding is that that will still be enforceable if the company does indeed go into administration.
Opposition leader Peter Dutton has waved off the Albanese government's plans to ramp up urgent care clinics as pork barrelling. Tim Lester has more from Canberra.
Many expect by this time next week, Prime Minister Albanese will have called the 2025 federal election. Labor wants Medicare and its plan for more doctors right at the middle of the campaign. Its $8.5 billion Medicare prescription, announced a week ago, was all but instantly matched by the coalition, confirming it too sees medical funding as a vote winner. Today, Labor has been pushing its plan for urgent care clinics.
More bulk billing, more doctors and more urgent care clinics. If elected, we will go to a network of 137 clinics. This will mean that 4 out of 5 Australians will live within 20 minutes drive of a Medicare urgent care clinic.
There's no question that Labor's pork barrelling. At the moment, Australians are working harder than ever under this government. The price of food is up, the price of groceries is up, the price of gas and electricity is up. Rents are up, mortgage repayments are up under this Prime Minister.
The coalition is looking to get voters focused on national security issues. Leader Peter Dutton wants to add a 28-jet squadron to Australia's fleet of the high-tech F-35 fighters. He's also saying plenty about that flotilla of Chinese warships now well into an apparent circumnavigation of Australia off the Western Australian coast. This 10 days after the warships did that live fire exercise that caused scores of commercial flights between Australia and New Zealand to divert.
This Prime Minister had no idea about the presence. He didn't know what to do. He had to rely on the Virgin pilot. I just think the Prime Minister's demonstrated to Australians he's completely out of his depth.
HMAS Stewart and HMAS Warramunga, as well as P8s, will continue to monitor what is going on. We'll continue to respond in an appropriate way.
The favoured day for the Prime Minister firing the election starting gun seems to be this coming Sunday. If Mr Albanese does not move soon, he'll be locked in to a May election.
Israel has blocked the entry of aid into Gaza after the first phase of the ceasefire deal with Hamas came to an end. The two sides are yet to negotiate the terms of the second phase of the agreement, but Hamas has refused to accept new proposals, which include the release of all the remaining hostages, and Israel has warned of additional consequences.
This border crossing should be busy with truckloads of desperately needed aid bound for Gaza. It is virtually deserted after Israel cut off all aid until it says Hamas agrees to a US plan to extend the ceasefire.
In light of Hamas's rejection of the US suggested framework, we decided the entry of goods and supplies into Gaza will be prevented. Hamas is currently taking control of all supplies and is turning the aid into a terrorist budget directed against us. We will not agree to this in any way.
For Fatima Al-Absi, every day is a struggle to survive at Jabalia refugee camp, to find enough food for hungry mouths.
We don't want war, we want peace and security. We want nothing but peace and security, and for all countries to stand with us. We are afraid that the war will return again.
Fears echoed in the local markets too, where there is food now, but many ask for how much longer.
The crossings are the means by which people obtain the basic necessities of life. Why are they closing them? For the extension of the truce, they must find another solution.
And as hundreds sat down together to break the first fast of the holy month of Ramadan, there are fears this fragile ceasefire could come to a shattering end, while Hamas has accused Israel of what it called cheap blackmail by blockading aid.
This is absolutely scary. It's horrific. And now suddenly we are just closing the tap. And that means that those people will run again through the same struggle and same suffering.
In Gaza, the future once again looks uncertain.
The Oscars have just wrapped up in Hollywood, and although it wasn't Australia's night, it was still a big celebration of the big screen. US correspondent Miley Hogan was on the red carpet as some of Hollywood's biggest names rolled out for the 97th Academy Awards.
The who's who of Hollywood has arrived here at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles ahead of the 97th Academy Awards.
Wicked stars Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo had the honour of opening the show. The first award went to Kieran Culkin for Best Supporting Actor, beating out our very own Aussie Guy Pearce. Before the show, he stopped by on the red carpet to chat about his chances.
I sort of don't mind now. I'm just happy to be part of the group.
Adam Elliott and Liz Carney also missed out for their film, Memoir of a Snail, but still enjoyed the time.
Well, little Grace, she hasn't got her legs.
We have prepared, only because you should be prepared.
Sadly, it wasn't Australia's night. We missed out for cinematography and visual effects. Best Actor went to Adrian Brody for his starring role in The Brutalist.
Thank you, God,
Thank you.
Best Actress, Mikey Madison from Anora. That film, Cleaning Up, taking home a total of 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
We made this movie for $6 million. If you're trying to make independent films, please keep doing it. We need more. This is proof.
The Oscars is really the finale of award season, and now that the show is over, the winners are going to take those Oscars and go and celebrate.
Chinese warships near the WA coast. The latest on their movements is next. Successful landings see the moment a private company lands on the moon. And signs of improvement from Pope Francis.
In 7 News, Cyclone Alfred headed for the southeast. Warnings from Brisbane to the Bay, plus the Gold and Sunshine Coasts.
My message to Queenslanders today is please be prepared.
Trusted meteorologist Tony Auden tracks the superstorm. What you need to do now to be ready. Special coverage only on 7 News at 6.
China's flexing of its naval muscle around Australia is now nearing another capital city. The 3 ships sailing around the country are now about 550 kilometres southeast of Perth. The Prime Minister insists Australia is responding in an appropriate way.
I have every faith in our Australian Defence Force to make sure they get that done.
The problem for our Prime Minister is that he's completely out of his depth and weak, and Australians understand it, they sense it.
HMAS Stewart and HMAS Warramunga have been deployed to monitor the flotilla with air support. There have been welcome signs out of Vatican City today as Pope Francis remains in a stable condition during his 17th consecutive night in hospital. The pontiff no longer requires mechanical ventilation, but doctors are remaining cautious. Ben Downey has the latest details.
The latest update on the Pope's health from the Vatican is more good news. He's in a stable condition now, not requiring any invasive oxygen therapy. The second consecutive day he's in a stable condition after that scare at the weekend when he suffered an isolated breathing crisis that threatened to put him back in a critical condition. Today, though, began his day with a good rest, able to wake and feed himself, drink coffee, engage in prayer and move around his 10th floor of Gemelli Hospital where he spent his 17th day. Also landed the weekend, he was well enough to host 2 guests, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican's second in charge and Secretary of State, as well as its Chief of Staff as well, Archbishop Peña Parra, 2 of the Pope's most closest confidants. Now, what was actually discussed at that meeting hasn't been revealed, but it's certainly being interpreted as another positive sign of the Pontiff's improving health. People really held out hope that because of that improving health, he might be able to deliver what's called his Angelus Prayer, a weekly prayer he holds every Sunday here in the Vatican in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican City. Sadly, he wasn't well enough to do that from the hospital, but he did release it, a written version. In it, he writes, he thanks God for giving him the opportunity to share in body and spirit the condition of so many sick and suffering people. In St. Peter's Square now, the faithful have gathered for a 7th consecutive night, led by the Cardinals, as more people to pray for the continual improvement of Pope Francis' health.
Incredible pictures show the Blue Ghost lander successfully touching down on the moon. The landing, the second ever commercial spacecraft to reach the lunar surface. Mission Control erupted into cheers when it touched down after orbiting the moon for the past 2 weeks. The lander will be collecting specimens and data as NASA looks to send astronauts back to the moon before the end of the decade. Who falls head over heels first? The new study answering whether men or women fall in love first. And in sports, skipper Adam Reynolds derails the Broncos hype train. New love research has revealed men fall head over heels more quickly and more often than women. A study from the Australian National University found men generally fall in love a month earlier than women and are more likely to say, "I love you" first. On the other hand, the research says women love more intensely, are more committed and spend more time thinking about their partners. Well, let's have a quick look at today's sport now with Steve.
I love my wife from day one, Marlina.
Wonderful.
So there you go. Hello, everyone. Broncos captain Adam Reynolds won't be jumping on the hype train as excitement builds ahead of Thursday night's round 1 rumble with the Roosters. While Brisbane fans are hoping the veteran leader and new coach Michael Maguire can combine to end their 19-year wait for a premiership, the halfback would prefer to stay humble.
We haven't done anything yet.
Hypotheticals are all good. You listen to people on the outside, you end up on the outside.
Selwyn Cobbo's tipped to be named on a wing tomorrow, despite an injury to centre Katoni Staggs. Tropical cyclone Alfred could have huge ramifications for the opening match of the AFL season, with Brisbane due to host Geelong at the Gabba on Thursday night. You can see from the latest pictures from our coastline, Alfred remains on track to cross the coast Thursday afternoon, just hours out from the season opener.
Weather patterns are unpredictable, and what we want to do absolutely is it'll be the health and safety of our players and our fans will be the number one priority in any decision that we make.
That is whether to proceed or postpone the match until round 3, when both teams have byes scheduled. At 6, we'll hear from a Suns player about his cyclone experience. Cooper Connolly has replaced injured opener Matt Short in the Australian squad for the knockout stage of the Champions Trophy. 21-year-old Connolly's left arm spin could see him get the nod over Jake Fraser-McGurk for tomorrow night's semi-final against India in Dubai.
We're feeling good about where we're sitting, but the tournament really starts now. The semi-finals even more cutthroat.
The Aussies are preparing at the ICC Academy in Dubai, having played their group games in Pakistan. Marlina, a nervous few days ahead for officials and fans in the AFL. More at 6.
All right, thank you, Steve. Still to come on 7, more on Cyclone Alfred, how the system could impact the coast, why this airliner was forced to turn around, and later after the weather, the new cancer discovery which could save lives.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Marlina Whop.
Good afternoon. Here's a look at our top stories. Queenslanders in the southeast are being told to prepare for Cyclone Alfred. The now Category 1 system is expected to re-intensify before making landfall on Thursday. Star's shares are on a trading halt again, raising uncertainty around the future of the casino giant. The company told lenders last week it had just 1 week of cash left. And celebrities have wowed at the Oscars red carpet. Honora won Best Picture with crew and cast from Wicked, and The Brutalist also taking home awards. Residents on the Gold Coast are already seeing the first effects of Cyclone Alfred as massive waves batter the city's beaches. While surfers take on the swell, Council is preparing for the potential fallout if it stays on track. Sam Payne reports.
The swell has arrived here on the Gold Coast as residents are being urged to prepare for the worst. Every beach in the city is closed, with brave surfers descending on the southern points with jet skis to take on the mammoth conditions. But this is just the beginning of the swell, with more size expected in the coming days, and the ramifications of that is severe erosion of sand dunes and beaches.
Crossing where it is not where it's predicted on Friday morning is not going to be good for the Gold Coast, because there will be significant rainfall around the southern edge of the system.
Some modelling suggests the Gold Coast could receive up to 600 millimetres of rain over a 3-day period, and a disaster management meeting will be taking place this evening to forecast the fallout of that much water. A major concern for the city is a storm surge flowing through the canal communities with high tides.
Storm surge, and that's the piece that we need, and we've got good intelligence. We're getting great support from the state, so we're running that modelling, and we'll be ready to talk to that with some more clarity tomorrow.
With that, it's understood a list will be provided with the areas at threat, but there's a warning of widespread flooding, so it could be a large part of the city. Planning has already begun for evacuation centres to be set up, as tourism is expected to take a hit. Green Day is scheduled to perform this Wednesday, as well as a women's golf event and the AFL later this week.
This is just unfortunate for anyone visiting at the moment. There'll be something to see, I'm sure.
Gold Coast Council is advising residents to check its online cyclone dashboard for regular updates, and are urging everyone to make a plan in the next day or so.
So yes, we need to take it seriously. It will be great if it swings back out to sea, but it doesn't look likely at the moment.
To prepare for a storm most of the city hasn't seen before.
Bay Island communities are being urged to keep up to date with Alfred's forecast. The message today is to be prepared, have a plan and be ready to leave. Anna McGraw has the details.
Good afternoon. Well, Cyclone Alfred is certainly starting to make itself known here on North Stradbroke Island. The winds have picked up, the swell is massive, and everyone here is slowly starting to get prepared. Residents and tourists on the Bay Islands are being asked to decide whether they will stay or leave. The Premier has warned the window for travel to and from the mainland will close with very short notice.
Ferry services are continuing at the moment, but that could change in the very near future.
Some have chosen to stay put, including Bob and Kat, who camp at Amity Point for 4 weeks in February each year.
Coming over here, I'm not worried about the cyclone. So if it comes, it comes. We've got place to go.
Others have been caught out and now face the possibility they'll be stuck until it's safe for ferries to operate again.
We'll be right. We'll be safe.
Good to get home, hey?
You can always swim back.
Businesses are watching the situation closely, preparing to shut their doors from tomorrow with the weather conditions already impacting their operations.
It's nature, there's not much. We can only prepare for it. That's all you can do.
Right now, ferries are still operating, but it is highly likely services will be cancelled from tomorrow until at least Thursday, and operators are asking people to postpone any non-essential travel. As this system continues to develop, the situation for the Bay Islands is changing rapidly. We'll have everything you need to know coming up in 7 News at 6.
A cyclone watch area extends from Gari to Grafton in northern New South Wales. Let's take a look now to an update from Emergency Services headquarters in Kedron earlier this afternoon.
My message to Queenslanders today is please be prepared. We are putting all the preparations in place and we're asking Queenslanders to do the same. And it is important that people take the event seriously, that they stay up to date with warnings, and Queenslanders need to know if they do that, they will be able to get through the event and as a state we'll be able to come out the other side of this. We're asking a large portion of the population to stay connected. And that's one of the complications and one of the things that we're very keen to share the messaging as clearly and consistently as we can, and we will continue to update Queenslanders as information comes to hand. But we're dealing with a very heavily populated part of the state, a state that hasn't seen a cyclone for many, many years, in fact many decades, get this close to the coast, or predicted to. And so it is important that Queenslanders absorb those messages so that we can continue to relay them to the state.
Tropical Cyclone Alfred will continue to impact southern Queensland for the remainder of this week. And by that, we mean hazardous conditions about the coast, damaging to potentially destructive winds, and heavy to locally intense rainfall leading to flooding and flash flooding. Currently, Tropical Cyclone Alfred is located off the Queensland coast and, as the Premier said, about 450 kilometres northeast of Brisbane. The system has weakened during this morning and at the 10 a.m. issue was a Category 1 system. And this is only a slight weakening from the Category 2 system in which it was maintaining in the overnight period.
And in the news at 6, we will hear from a cyclone expert who will outline exactly what the impact of a Category 2 system could be. To other news, a Qantas flight had to make an emergency landing this morning after a fire broke out in the cockpit. The plane only managed to stay in the air for 20 minutes before being turned back. Passengers none the wiser until they touched down. Jodie Lee has the story.
Good afternoon. Well, QF643 took off from Sydney around 8:40 this morning, but it was back here at Kingsford Smith Airport just a few minutes later after smoke filled the cockpit. 7 News spoke with some of the passengers on board that flight this morning. They say that they could smell the smoke, but it didn't seep into the cabin. Instead, they felt the flight make a rapid descent from 13,000 feet, make a sharp turn and return to Sydney.
She was opening up in maybe about 10 minutes and then we landed. Yeah, basically everything went off and then the plane just kind of turned and started done a loop and then went down.
Firefighters were on the tarmac to meet the aircraft. They inspected the cockpit before allowing passengers to safely disembark. Qantas managed to arrange a new flight for passengers just an hour later.
I think they did a smart thing. They didn't inform anybody in the plane what is happening. And we just find out from the windows that we are going back to Sydney. Connecting flight is delayed in Perth. So we might have to stay in Perth.
Qantas has told 7 News that no Mayday was declared. Instead, the pilot called a 7700, telling air traffic control that the flight needed urgent assistance.
A state of emergency has been declared in the US state of South Carolina as wildfires continue to burn there and in neighbouring state North Carolina. It's estimated more than 4,000 acres of land have been burned in 200 fires. Many fires in South Carolina have been contained, while in North Carolina residents have been forced to evacuate. Volodymyr Zelensky has received a very warm welcome from leaders during his trip to the UK. The Ukrainian president met with King Charles and attended a summit hosted by Keir Starmer, who doubled down on his support. Joel Dry reports.
It was a symbolic final meeting for Volodymyr Zelensky here in the UK, flying directly to Sandringham Estate in Norfolk, the King's private residence, for an audience with the monarch. They shook hands outside before retiring into the building, where they no doubt discussed the very dire situation that the president and his people find themselves in. King Charles, by convention, has to remain apolitical, but he's made no secret of the fact that he very much supports Ukrainian people and their plight. The politics of the day was done earlier in London when European leaders gathered at Lancaster House for peace talks with Zelensky, trying to find a way to get this process back on track. The UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, saying he wants to meet with France primarily to try to find a way to end the fighting, and central to that peace deal would be a coalition of the willing, European boots on the ground as a peacekeeping force. He says now is the time to act.
Our starting point must be to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position now, so that they can negotiate from a position of strength. And we are doubling down in our support.
The Prime Minister also giving the caveat that all of this requires the support of the United States. And after that big blow-up in the Oval Office between Trump and Zelensky, getting both those presidents back to the negotiation table, no doubt a very difficult task.
What's got an Aussie rock legend in hot water? His comments are next. And the breakthrough which could help women with ovarian cancer.
The rebirth of the Brisbane Broncos. Shane Webke one-on-one with Michael Maguire.
Did you find something that was broken? I've just walked in the door and showed the players that this is what I believe and I know and experience takes us to a good place.
Why Webby's convinced Madge can break Brisbane's 19-year premiership drought. 7 News at 6.
An evil son who killed his elderly mother in her own kitchen will serve as little as 5 years in jail. Gordon Ivanovic was today sentenced to a maximum of 8 years behind bars for killing his 81-year-old mother. He accepted a deal to plead guilty to manslaughter after being told how many years he'd likely serve. Ivanovic's heartbroken sister was in court to hear the sentence handed down. 2 women have been hit by a tree, one suffering suspected spinal injuries after it came crashing down, landing on a house in Sydney. The women were believed to be struck as they walked past the property just after 9:30 this morning. Emergency services arrived to the scene to find the trunk split in 2. Both women were taken to hospital. Pruning is being blamed for the incident. Australian musician Peter Garrett has landed himself in hot water after taking a major dig at mining magnate Gina Rinehart. During his concert, the former politician also sledged gas giant Woodside and US President Donald Trump.
Good afternoon. Well, as his fans know, a Peter Garrett show isn't ever going to be just about the music. And on Friday night here at the Perth Festival, the Midnight Oil rocker and former federal MP did not hold back on preaching his own political views. In front of a huge crowd, the 72-year-old took aim at oil and gas giant Woodside, US President Donald Trump and West Australian mining magnate Gina Rinehart.
But I do know that Gina was at the table with Trump, cheering him on. And people shy away from using coloured and emotional terms like fascistics or Nazis or whatever it might be, but that's what we're seeing.
But it was his comments directed at the Hancock Prospecting and Roy Hill boss that's prompted a chorus of condemnation. The singer urging fans to pretend they're dancing on Gina Rinehart's grave.
to couch his views in the way that he did, which was essentially about sowing hatred in our community, is not on. It's not on in any part of our community. And quite frankly, he needs to apologise.
Perth Festival has come out saying it does not support censorship. Artistic expression is personal and views shared by artists are their own. A spokesperson for Gina Rinehart called Peter Garrett an attention-seeking activist who tried to trash Mrs Rinehart but ended up trashing himself. Peter Garrett's management told 7 News he has no further comment.
To finance now, and the Aussie share market has enjoyed a solid lift to start the new week and month. Here's James Tao from ING Bank with more.
Good afternoon. It has been a far brighter start to March for investors, with the local share market bouncing back after sliding over 4% in February. Today, the ASX 200 added 73 points, or 0.9%, for its best day in over 3 weeks. Qantas added 5% and traded at a fresh record high, having rallied roughly 10% since its profit results were released last Thursday. Meanwhile, Star Entertainment has entered a trading halt, having failed to lodge its half-year results by close of business last Friday. The company said it is unlikely to lodge its profit results unless it can secure new funding to keep the company operating. And lastly, the Aussie dollar has firmed to buy 62.2 US cents on some better than expected Chinese manufacturing data.
There have been welcome signs out of Vatican City today, with Pope Francis remaining in a stable condition for the second day in a row. Catholic faithful held out hope he'd be able to deliver his weekly prayer from his hospital bed, but he wasn't quite well enough, instead releasing a written version. In it, he thanked God for giving him the opportunity to share in body and spirit the condition of so many sick and suffering people. Could this be the secret to fighting one of the deadliest cancers? Next, the new medical breakthrough which could save the lives of women. And it's been cloudy and windy in Brisbane today as Cyclone Alfred looks to make landfall later this week. Tony has the forecast and latest warnings next.
In 7 News, Cyclone Alfred headed for the southeast. Warnings from Brisbane to the Bay, plus the Gold and Sunshine Coasts.
My message to Queenslanders today is please be prepared.
Trusted meteorologist Tony Auden tracks the superstorm. What you need to do now to be ready. Special coverage only on 7 News at 6.
Sunrise is going all out, splashing cash and a car.
You could win a brand new Cherry Tiggo 7.
This epic prize could be yours. Plus, the Cash Cow is giving away money every single day. Be watching to win. Answer in 3 rings. Start with Sunrise.
Australian scientists have uncovered the key to slowing down tumour progression in ovarian cancer patients. Researchers found leader cells suppress a woman's immune system, making it harder for cancer treatments to be effective. For more on this, I'm joined by Dr. Marie Belanczyk from the Hudson Institute of Medical Research. Marie, what exactly are leader cells?
So leader cells are the backseat drivers. They are an immunotherapy or therapy-resistant population of cells. So quite often our ovarian cancer patients will respond really well to first-line treatments, but unfortunately the disease comes back, and we've figured out that these leader cells are the ones that are evading the current treatments that we have available.
And so why is there description of backseat drivers of the disease?
Well, they're the ones that are giving the directions to the majority of the tumour cells that are there, and they only represent a very small but vocal population of cells.
How will this discovery lead to new treatments?
So the group are currently working on developing a novel antibody therapy that's directed towards leader cells in the hope that we can give women the chance to live disease-free. Currently, ovarian cancer has about a 30% survival rate, and despite the fact that, we've put a lot of research effort and time into discoveries around novel treatments, we haven't changed the way we treat the disease in over 20 years, so it's really urgently required.
Okay, Dr. Marie Belanczyk, thank you for your time today.
Thanks.
Now back to the weather, and Tony, what's the latest on Cyclone Alfred?
Marlina, after days of speculation, we have an official cyclone watch current for the southeast, so it's all getting pretty real now. At the moment, Alfred is Category 1, sitting 430 kilometres away from the Sunshine Coast. We are still expecting movement away from the coast until late tomorrow, then likely intensifying back up to Category 2 as a hybrid system and turning straight back towards the coast. At the moment, landfall seems most likely between Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast late Thursday or into Friday. As we add a bit of uncertainty onto the map here, we have a range of paths from Gari down to northern New South Wales from Wednesday night through to Friday night. The cyclone watch is now current from Gari down towards Grafton in New South Wales. Now, watch is issued within 48 hours of gales on the coast, a warning within 24 hours, so we should see those issued tomorrow. Waves are already over 4 metres in the southeast. That could bump up to 6 to 7 metres, making coastal erosion even more severe. Strongest winds will be on the southern side of Alfred as he hits the coast. Now, the Bureau's only warning for damaging wind gusts up to 120 k's an hour at the moment, but that could increase if Alfred intensifies further. Winds will be strongest right on the coast, easing further inland. At or after landfall, we are looking at potential life-threatening flash flooding and riverine flooding as heavy rain sweeps right across the region. Northern New South Wales is also on flood watch with heavy rain down there as well. Now, onto the forecast for northern Queensland tomorrow. What cyclone? Sunny and hot across the board. In the south, only isolated showers on the coast and ranges up to about Bundaberg, 33 degrees at the top there. In the southeast, a slight easing of showers and winds as Alfred moves away, but waves will continue to build and staying fairly hot, 32 the top in Brisbane. Then it all ramps up later this week. Marlina will have the latest, all those warnings coming up at 6.
All right, we'll see you then. Thanks, Tony. Well, that's Queensland's 4 p.m. news for this Monday. Stay with us now for The Chase, then 7 News at 6. I'm Marlina Whop. I'll see you tomorrow.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want. Download now.